Hey guys, welcome to the 85th, that's right, 85th edition of the Animated Girls Profile Confidential, which means we are 15 away from episode 100, or the 100th edition, I should say. And today we're going to be looking at a classic female character from the 1960s. I think the title of the video gives it away best. She is basically the Lois Lane to this hero, who the show is titled after. She is none other than sweet Polly Purebred. Now you might be asking yourself, if you're new to this character, who is sweet Polly Purebred and why is she the Lois Lane to the Underdog character? Well, basically, the reason she is looked at as the Lois Lane to Underdog, as Lois Lane is to Superman, is just like Lois Lane, she is a reporter. Unlike Lois Lane, though, even back then in the 60s, Lois Lane was the reporter, the head reporter for the Daily Planet newspaper. But sweet Polly Purebred was the lead reporter for a TV news network. And basically, she was kind of in the role that Lois was in at times in the original Max Fleischer cartoons and even some of the cartoons of the 1960s. Basically, sweet Polly Purebred would always find herself in a situation to where Underdog would have to save her. Now, does that mean she was always the damsel in distress? Yes, but not 100% always. Let me correct myself there. She wasn't always 100% damsel in distress. There were times that she actually worked alongside Underdog doing some of his adventures. Like, there's an episode where they get shrink down and they have to work together to get back to normal size. There's an episode where she retrieves Underdog's ring, which basically allows him to have his, I guess you could say, his power pills or whatever they're called, to help him, remain super, and help him remain strong, to regain his powers. There's several times to where, he might accidentally do something, it'll get on the nerves of whatever, citizens of whatever town they could be in at that time, and she comes to his defense. So, yeah, I would basically say less than 100% of the time she is, the damsel in distress. She has but when she does end up in that situation, I should say, she does have the saying in a sing-song voice of where is my underdog at? And that's basically the calling sound, if you will. That is basically like, the key saying, the signal, the bat signal, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, for Underdog to come to her rescue. Now, just like with Lois Lane originally, basically, sweet Polly Purebred does not know Underdog is really a friend of hers, outside of his, superhero-ness, if you will. Sweet Polly Purebred doesn't realize that her friend, Shoeshine Boy, who actually has affection for her, and I guess you can kind of say she kind of has a little bit of affection, for him, a little bit of a sweet affection, kind of like on that sweet friendship level, to where, hey, let's say Shoeshine Boy was invited to go somewhere, like a ball or wherever, but he could only go if he had a date. Sweet Polly Purebred's the kind of character, as she is described, that would actually step in immediately and be like, hey, you don't have anybody? I'll step in and I'll be your date. And that's basically how she's portrayed in the series at times, if not most times. But anyway, just like Lois Lane, as I was trying to say, she doesn't know that Shoeshine Boy is Underdog. And just like Shoeshine Boy has the hots, if you will, for sweet Polly Purebred, sweet Polly has the hots for Underdog. But again, unbeknownst to her, Underdog and Shoeshine are one and the same. And, I don't know if they would have planned for the identity to be revealed later on, because we all know that, as Superman progressed into, many decades after Underdog, that basically Lois Lane did eventually find out the truth. Clark basically deciding that if I'm going to spend the rest of my life with her, and this was before the 1993, 1992 Death of Superman storyline. This is around a little before it, that when Clark and Lois were becoming an item, that Clark realized, hey, and I guess he got advice from, his mother, Martha Kent, and a few others, that if he's going to spend the rest of his life with Lois, he has to reveal the truth to her. Or else she's gonna find out anyway. So eventually he does reveal that he and Superman are one and the same. Now, like I was saying, I don't know if they ever planned in the future, whether in the animated series or even in some of the comics, that Sweet Polly would have found out the truth about Shoeshine and Underdog being the same individual. But I can tell you this, nowadays, honestly, that secret would have been revealed, probably as part of some kind of mid-finale, if you will, or part of an anniversary issue. That's how I think it would have been revealed. And honestly, in today's world, and I say this with all due respect, no offense, I don't think honestly they would make Sweet Polly so oblivious to what's going on. I don't think they would make her so oblivious. Like, I believe in today's world, they would make Sweet Polly Purebred's character, kind of clued in. Like, she starts putting the pieces of the puzzle together and starts realizing, wait a minute, when Underdog shows up, Shoeshine's no way around, but when he disappears, Shoeshine shows up. I think, honestly, in today's world, they would make her more, keyed in or clued in to the fact that, wait a minute, could it be kind of deal. So I don't think Sweet Polly Purebred would be so oblivious to what was going on. I mean, she would basically figure it out. I'll give you a good example. Going back to Superman and Lois Lane. In the Death of Superman, the Superman Doomsday animated film that came out in 2007, around the same time that they brought out the Underdog live action film. In that animated adaptation, it basically was clued in right off the start that Lois knew Superman and Clark were one and the same. I mean, she flat out told, Superman, while they were at the Fortress of Solitude having some intimate, private time, she even told Superman straight to his face, I know who you really are. Why don't you just tell me? She's basically telling him, I know who you are. And when he dies or goes into a deep coma, as I would look at it, she calls him Clark. She drops his name Clark on him. So, I mean, they make it obvious from the beginning that she knows, but all she wants from Superman Clark is for him to confess it. Like, if they're going to have a relationship, he's got to tell the truth. So, to me, when it comes to someone like Sweet Polly Purebred, in today's world, they would make that truth be revealed, either in a mid-season or season finale for a new updated animated series, or they would make it, they would make that revelation become a reality in an anniversary issue of a comic book. And everybody listening to this right now, watching and listening to that, or listening to this, I should say, right now, knows that's the truth. You know as well as I do that they would do that. And, speaking of Sweet Polly, like I said, less than 100% of the time she was viewed as a damsel in distress. But other times she would prove to be useful, like some of the moments I mentioned. Again, I say this with no disrespect, no offense. I believe in today's world, She would still be looked at as a damsel. They might put her in some damsel in distress situations. But I'll tell you this. Those damsel in distress situations would be less. And again, I say this with all due respect and no offense. All due respect and no offense. Those damsel in distress situations would be less than 25%. You would be looking at her being a damsel in distress 25% of the time, no matter what reincarnation, what reboot, no matter what revival of the Underdog franchise, comic book, animated series, or whatever, she would be less than 25% of the time a damsel in distress, because most of the 75%, because basically most of the other 75% of the time, what I'm trying to say, most of the other 75% of the time, she would be in on the action. She would be in on the action. She would basically be kicking butt, taking names, and doing whatever she could to get the scoop. I'll give you a good example. Once again, one of the recent movies that came out from the DC original animated universe, the finale to the whole New 52 arc, if you will. Justice League Dark, Apocalypse War. Lois Lane in that one is viewed as a badass. She basically tells Clark at the beginning, hey, I'm going to be careful. I'm going to do what it has to take to get the scoop. Don't worry about me. I can take care of myself. She's basically telling him his job is to protect the world. Her job is to get the story on how it's being protected, and she's going to do what she has to keep herself safe and make sure the story is heard. And then when we time skip to 2 years later, she's freaking leading a resistance group, and she's showing to be a badass leader at that. And you wonder to yourself, where has this Lois been? Well, this Lois has been around for several years. Even now, she's in the rebirth era. She's been around for several years, if not many. And basically, getting back to sweet Polly Purebred, I could see them doing the same for her. I could see her in today's world, no matter what the revision. That's the one I'm trying to look for. Revision, revival, reboot, whatever. No matter how they do it, whether it's animated, comic books, whatever, she will be looked at and viewed as the same way. She will be looked at and viewed the same way. And that's the truth. And again, I say this with no disrespect. No disrespect, no offense. Everybody listening and watching this knows that to be true. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't put it past them in a revamped revival of the Underdog series, animated or comic book wise, that they take a traditional trope that we've seen many times before, and even if it's a one-time deal, they give her the Underdog powers to let her experience a day in Underdog's shoes. And let her be the hero. Heck, in today's world, in today's world, speaking of powers, and I know I go back to this a lot because it's an obvious choice that a lot of creators would go with. They could give her the freaking power, even if it's a one-time deal, of liquid, of goo, of slime or whatever, to where she could basically, for one episode, one story, be a slime girl and be able to manipulate her body any which way she wants. In other words, melt down into a puddle, shape-shift into an inanimate object, seep through cracks here and there in a building or in the ground, stuff like that. Heck, even split herself in two if she has to help get an advantage, or help get the advantage, or for Underdog to get the drop on the bad guys. Who knows? In today's world, even if it's a one-time deal, they would give her those kind of powers. And I'm not saying that because some people might say it's a fetish or a fetish of mine or anything like that. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that because it's fact and everybody knows it. Everybody, again, watching and listening to listening to this knows that to be true. I mean, here's the thing. Do I think they would actually go those routes? Again, I'm not in a creator's shoes. I'm not someone that's working for a major animation studio or a major studio or a major distributor or anything like that, saying, hey, I got this great idea for an Underdog revival, and here's one of the ideas for an episode. I'm not saying that I know that's going to happen, but I'm just pointing out the fact that this is something that a lot of creators in today's world, in today's environment, will go down, even if it's to, for one episode, temporarily give someone like Sweet Polly Purebred some powers to let her be, for one day only, a superhero. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if they went down that route. Just as I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised that in today's world, she would be looked at as a more badass, do what you have to do to get the story, kick butt, kind of reporter that's 25% damsel in distress, 75% badass reporter, equal to Underdog, be able to take care of herself kind of deal. I mean, like I said, in the classic show, yeah, she was about reversal of that percentage. She was at times 75 to 70%, maybe 65% of the time the damsel in distress. Well, 35% of the time she was, on the adventure with Underdog. She was helping him out. She was defending him. She was doing what, needed to be done. And so Today, though, those roles would be, that percentage of roles, that would be reversed. Those percentages, I should say, would be reversed. And I think all of us would agree on that. I know I sound like I'm stumbling over my words a little bit. I do apologize. But again, we all know that percentage of numbers would be reversed, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, Sweet Polly Purebred. What more can be said about this character other than, she's a very popular character. Anytime merchandise is sold, she's either sold individually as a figure or a plush, or she's in a combo pack with Underdog. Whatever the scenario is, she's always been looked at as a very whatever the situation is. Whatever the merchandise is, with her and Underdog on there, if not her individually, it sells out. It sells out, not quickly, but it does sell. And people have to restock. Now, I know some of you might ask, well, are you going to touch upon the live action movie? Yeah, I'll touch upon the live action movie. I mean, the live action movie, it was all right. I mean, it didn't do so well in the box office, and I think I know why it didn't do so well at the box office, or with critics, or with fans. And the reason being is, once again, the live action film followed a trope that shouldn't be followed, even at that time. And that is basically trying to bring a fictional world of characters like the Underdog characters into the real world. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't make Underdog and, Sweet Polly just regular dogs. You can't make Sweet Polly into a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. You can't do that. If you're going to do a movie adaptation of this, you got to stay true to its roots. You got to stay true to its roots. And that's one thing I'll give the benefit to a lot of movies nowadays. That at least they're trying to get back to the roots of what made, the franchise that they're adapting great. And my hope is if they decide to do another movie, that either it's complete CGI, or just like what we're getting with the Tom and Jerry movie and even Space Jam, my hope is that we get a perfect blending of CGI and animation. That's what I'm hoping we get. Because that would work out better than what we got with the live action film back in 2007, I think, when the same year Superman Doomsday came out. I think that would be a better choice. Now, as far as Sweet Polly's voice goes, she was originally voiced by the same person that voiced Casper the Friendly Ghost. Her name was Norma McMillan, I think. Norma McMillan. And in the live action film, she was voiced by Amy Adams. I'm not saying Amy didn't do a good job. I mean, she did a decent job. I mean, one of the scenes that we see in the trailer is her, I guess, sarcastically singing the "Oh, where's my underdog at?" It's like, okay, I'll give you credit that you're trying to give Sweet Polly a little bit more personality, a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more sarcasticness. I'll give you that. But, you know, in truth, ladies and gentlemen, again, when you look at the live action film, despite possibly a decent performance by Amy Adams, you can't do a Sweet Polly Purebred in a movie like that, or even an Underdog / Shoeshine Boy in a movie like that, because it's going to get criticized. And I think, again, this is one of the reasons it bombed, because nobody liked the way it was being adapted. It was basically, in the long run, ladies and gentlemen, it was basically a boy and his dog movie. That's all it was. You just plastered the Underdog name on it. It's the same thing with Jem and the Holograms. You know, instead of taking the effort to make it Jem and the Holograms, they just slapped the name on it and that's it. It could have been something totally different. You know, it could have put it under a different name and it wouldn't have mattered, but they decided to go with Jem and the Holograms because they wanted to make a quick buck. The point is, you know, in my opinion, like I said, if you wanted to bring Amy Adams in to do the voice of Sweet Polly Purebred in a movie, the movie had to be true to what the original was. And not be a boy and his dog like film. Not saying those can't be done well. It's just when you're adapting Underdog, you know, I don't think so. I don't think so. But anyway, again, my hope is if they do a movie again down the line, that it's a hybrid of what we are in store for when it comes to Tom and Jerry, what we're probably in store for when it comes to Space Jam New Legacy. That is what I hope for. And honestly, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You know, with today's world and everything, Sweet Polly Purebred would be looked at as 25% less damsel and 75% more badass, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, though, guys, that's all I could say on the Underdog lead female character, Sweet Polly Purebred, on this 85th edition of the Animated Girls Profile Confidential. Let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. Let me know if you agree with anything I had to say about this. And we are now 15 away, like I said at the beginning, 15 away from 100. Who will be next as we get up there to that number? We will find out. So until next time, guys, let me know what you all think down below. Comment if you like. Love to hear what each and every one of you have to say on my choice for this edition, I should say, of Animated Girls Profile Confidential. Comment down below. Click the icon in the upper right hand corner and check out the playlist of Animated Girls Profile Confidential to catch up, as well as click down in one of the boxes down below to check out the individual that inspired me to do this series, and that's Jawbreaker's Furry Girl Profiles series. You guys will enjoy that as well. So till next time, guys, I will talk to you all later. I'm going to get me some lunch, and I am out. Thank you for watching the 85th edition of the Animated Girls Profile Confidential on Sweet Polly Purebred.